Welcome to another episode of the TUE Brew Review. This week we are checking out the Poet. This is an oatmeal stout from the folks at New Holland Brewing Company out of Western Michigan. So oatmeal being added to the grain bill, it's actually been around for quite some time. I believe the Belgians did it some, but this beer style was very popular in the British Isles, particularly for the Scots. The British made a sweet stout, and they used some oatmeal stouts, but they like to use milk stouts. That was kind of their big thing for their sweet stouts. But the Scottish would put a significant amount of oat malt into their grain bill because it was readily available, and that was kind of their counter to the milk stout that Britain produced. And I would think it's kind of interesting that back then oatmeal was marketed as healthy, so this was considered a healthy choice for a beer. And even to this day and age, oatmeal is heavily marketed as some type of healthy food, and it certainly is good for you. You hear about the the heart healthy aspects of it, and lowering your bad cholesterol. But when you enrobe it in a bunch of alcohol, might take off the effect of the healthiness a little bit. But anyway, so this style kind of fell out of favor in the 20th century, and kind of all but went away for the most part. But its revival, especially here in the United States, can be credited to the craft brewing movement of the late 20th century. A lot of craft brewers who went over to places like Scotland and experienced these beers brought them back and formulated recipes and made oatmeal stouts. So in the late 90s, usually one of the 4 or 5 flagship beers of most craft brewers of that day probably included an oatmeal stout. So once again, kudos to the craft brewing movement of the late 20th century to bring about this style. I don't see it as much now, but it's still out there. And I believe New Holland, and there's other brewers out there as well that make this product year round. A lot of people like to consider this more of a winter seasonal type of beer. Just the darker, the chocolatey, the more full-bodied notes of the beer tend to make it more of a kind of a cold weather seasonal sipper. But I think you can enjoy this 12 months out of the year. So let's go ahead and get into this. 12-ounce can, that is the New Holland logo there. We've got, let's see here, I think I saw independent craft brewer logo, which you always like to see. I think I saw, 5.8% ABV. And yes, oatmeal stouts and stouts in general, people think that they're higher in alcohol because they see a dark beer and they're like, oh, that must have a lot of booze in it. It's actually the opposite. Oatmeal stouts and, like Guinness, dry Irish stouts tend to be relatively low in alcohol. And I do like this slogan for gezellig or gezellig. I'm not Dutch, but I'm going to say gezellig. For gezellig times, that is a Dutch word that means pleasant. So this is meant to create savored moments. So let's create a moment, shall we? Open this guy up. Get him into the glass. Okay, you got a really nice deep brown color, as one would expect. And you've got that really dense amber head. Oh yeah, you get a nice roast malt aroma and a little bit of like a sweet malt. Hard to pick up in the oatmeal. Oatmeal doesn't carry much of an aroma. It's more the dark roast is what I'm getting in the aromatics. Cheers. Silky, sweet malt flavors. Getting a nice little hit of chocolate, like semi-sweet chocolate. Man, it's actually pretty profound, the chocolate in this. Yeah, some really nice sweetness. The toasted grain is there, but it's very subtle, very mild. But yeah, the mouthfeel, fantastic. And oatmeal stouts have a very creamy texture, great mouthfeel, and this has that in spades. Soft, creamy, rich. It's got a good amount of body. It kind of coats the tongue a little bit, but not heavy. It's got a really long, sweet finish. Again, getting big hits of chocolate in here. So if you're a fan of chocolate, you really like this beer. Again, the texture, silky and smooth. It's got beautiful chocolate notes. I think the roast character gets kind of lost in this one. I think it's more sweet than roast. So I would like to see a little bit more of a roast stout character to this. But otherwise, this is a very tasty seasonal sipper. So if you need a little something to kind of get you through one of the cold winter nights and take the edge off, I would definitely recommend this beer. It's absolutely delicious, as one would expect from the fine folks at New Holland Brewing. So there you have it. This is New Holland's The Poet Oatmeal Stout. Proust.